Hey, it's Bronze and Modern Gods yet again, and I'm John, and that is Richard. Hi, Richard.
Hi, John. How are you today?
I am doing okay. We are going to just hit the ground running. We've got a lot to talk about. What are you doing wrong? What are you doing wrong with collecting?
Oh, I thought you were actually asking me what I was doing wrong. I could tell you.
What are you doing wrong, Richard, in your life? No, what are the top 5 mistakes comic book collectors make? We're here to talk about it. We've been doing this for years, and we've got a lot of knowledge between the two of us, so we are here to share that with you. We've also got our hot book of the week, viewer mail, our underrated books of the week, and as always, the 25-year-old going back to 1996 now. But before all of that, please follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Bronze and Modern Gods. Give us a like here, subscribe to the channel, help us reach more people. We love you for that. And we're going to get right into the hot book of the week. Richard, take it away.
This week there are a couple different choices just to let us talk about it. We debated a number of books, but the book I think we picked has the most impact here, which is Star Wars High Republic #1. This is a book that hit the ground running. At my LCS, it was being listed at $15 on release day. It's just
again, is it the same LCS?
Same LCS.
Okay.
Just as an aside, I did talk to him about the ASM 55, where he was charging $20 for it. He gave it to me at cover. He says you should have said something. I would have just done it. And he gets my money again. So, but anyway, so this is going for about $15 for cover A. There are 5 different covers, 2 of them, which of them are incentives. But this is a part of the High Republic age of the Star Wars universe. And one of the first pages in this book, actually for the first time, I understand the Star Wars timeline. They have a really nice timeline that lists the order of the different events in the universe. And this is important to understand because different things happen in different parts of the timeline. And that's why you don't see some characters overlapping, because they may be from the earlier on in the timeline versus later on. So it kind of helps understand. And just real quick, I'm going to go over them. So the timeline goes, you got High Republic, you've got Fall of the Jedi, you've got Reign of the Empire, you got Age of Rebellion, the New Republic, and then Rise of the First Order. So you got everything back from pre-movies all the way through the last Rise of Skywalker, which was the last movie. So you got things covering there. And frankly, the only character that runs through the whole timeline is going to be Yoda. You'll see Yoda in some of these High Republic covers, as a matter of fact. So the High Republic starts off telling the story of the time before Darth Vader, the time before the first trilogy. And I think the book does a really good job. But more important, Disney is investing in it. One of the announcements they had for the future of the Disney Plus channel is a TV show, an animated TV show for the High Republic. So this book is the first appearance of a number of characters that may show up in that television show. They've also announced a live action show called The Alkalite that takes place in this particular timeline. So again, you may see characters come from the comic book into that live action show. So this is an opportunity to buy in on these characters early for a reasonable amount of money. And I think that's the reason why these books are going for $15 and over ratio when you get to the incentive variants. So now's a good time to buy these. And even at $15, I think that it's a solid buy. I would pick up at least one. I always pick up at least 2, just so that if I decide I want to sell one, I still have one to keep for the PC. It's an opportunity to get on the ground floor of Disney Plus properties. This is the first time that we've got a new property from Disney Plus with no history in terms of past comics. So this is it. If you want High Republic, you're starting off with this series.
It's interesting because I went to my LCS on Wednesday early in the morning, as I do, because I can, which I'm very lucky to be able to do that. I realize that. Trust me, I'm not bragging. I'm like, oh, thank you. And I went in and there was a stack of the 4 regular covers on the shelf. And I just went, no, I want the incentive variants. And all I bought were the incentive variants. And I left the other 4 on the shelf. And then later this week, I'm like, why did I do that? I could have stocked up. And the other thing is, if you're watching us on YouTube right now, you should go back, rewind a little bit, and watch for the exact moment when Richard's going over the timeline that my eyes glaze over and I lose all consciousness. I think that'll be fun for you to review.
Come on, John. You were of an age where you went to the theater and saw Star Wars.
I know. I'm just teasing. There's nothing I like more in a comic book than having to study history before I read it. But that's just me. I'm with you on that. All right, let's move on to our viewer mail. We've got a couple this week. The first one, speaking of Star Wars, comes from Sam Klosko. Sam, I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. Sam says, interestingly, Star Wars #7, our good buddy Jackson the Rabbit, is the book I remember as getting me into comics as a kid. I like that you guys were thrilled that they continued the story. Yes, the stories are not the best, but as an 8 or 9-year-old in 1977 or 78, I love them. I have 2 complete runs of the series and counting. Great show. Thank you, Sam. We agree with you. And thanks for letting us know your thoughts.
Absolutely. Always great to see another Star Wars fan. The next viewer mail we have is kind of tailored towards my area of expertise. So this is from Nick D. My personal issue with Fallout 4 being so valuable right now is that it's not really a scarce book. As of my writing, there are 2,555 total 9.8s on the CGC census. There are another 2,363 9.6s. From 9.0 to 9.4, there are another approximate 3,000 copies. It's actually more difficult to find a mid-grade copy than it is to find a high 9 copy. So I can't bring myself to believe it's worth the prices people are paying for. Yes, absolutely, Miles is a beloved character, and I'm not saying the book is worthless, but seeing the huge spike in race to grab copies seems hasty to me. This is, after all, a modern book with thousands of high-grade copies to be had.
Counterpoint.
I will agree with you that this is not necessarily a scarce book in terms of the print run comparatively to other books out there. My counter, though, is even though there are multiple copies of it, there are more people who want copies of this book than there are copies available. We saw this phenomenon also with Amazing Spider-Man number 300. There are over 21,000 copies of that book on the census right now. And yet the 9.8s are going for around $5,000 because of the lower percentage. Now, I understand the 9.8 ratio for UF4 is not as low as it is for ASM 300. But again, it is a supply and demand situation. You've got a lot of factors that pull people to this book. And I think as long as the market isn't saturated, in other words, there is more people who are out there looking for this book than there are books available, we're going to see those high prices. And, this is a situation that is not going to correct itself. There are not going to be magically more, Ultimate Fallout 4s that pop up. So as time goes on and more people start looking for these books, and the people who have them, like me, I've got 10 of them on the wall over there, start hoarding them, there's going to be less available for the new people coming into the hobby. So what's the solution there? They're going to end up paying more for those copies that are out there. So to me, the prices are high, and they are high right now, but I don't think necessarily they're the highest they're going to go for a number of reasons. One, again, that's scarcity. Two, there's money constantly coming into the channel, either from we've got payments from the government here coming up. We've got people coming in from other collector hobbies like sneakers and sports cards that are used to spending big bucks on books or property. Gaming, absolutely. So all this new money is circulating in, and they're targeting those books that they think are going to have the highest return. And I still think that long run, with the Spider-Verse movie coming out here in 2022, potentials with the multiverse storyline, including some of the Spider characters, Sony actually making good movies with Spider-Man. It is a shocker. And the video games, of course, the recent Miles Morales video game was a huge hit for Sony, and it's brought in a lot of money from the game, and it also brought in attention to the books that from people who are not comic book people. So I think Miles is really poised to be that Spider-Man, that first family, Fantastic Four kind of first family for this new generation of superheroes.
Miles Morales is not going anywhere. This is not going to be a flash in the pan. I think this is a character that, has 8 legs.
Thank
you. And, if you want to talk about the high number of books on a census for an expensive book, we got to talk about Incredible Hulk 181. I don't know offhand off the top of my head right here without doing a little research, but there are thousands of copies of Hulk 181. Now, the key here is the number of 9.8s on the census. And I do understand what Nick is saying. There's a really high number of 9.8s. Right. But that is because, and the same with Amazing Spider-Man 300, it's a very tough book in 9.8, despite those numbers. It came polybagged. If you don't press it, there's a big seam right down the middle of the back cover. A lot of people don't know that. You should see some of these Facebook groups I'm in. They're like, I can't believe I got an 8.0 on this Fallout 4. And everyone's like, did you press it? And they're like, what? Why? So there's a lot of lack of knowledge, which is our main topic today. We're going to get to that in a second. But I don't think this book is going to go. I think there will be dips. I do agree, Nick, there will be peaks and valleys, but I think long-term, this is a keeper because we've got how much Morales?
We've got Miles
Morales. That's correct.
It is a modern book. So when you're investing, I hate to say investing, when you're spending your money on comic books, because it's comic books, right? You have choices, and different eras have different potentials for stability. And I understand Silver Age and Copper Age and Bronze Age have a better stability because the collectors of those books and are looking to spend the money. They have the money to spend for those books, and there's a history of prices for those books over decades potentially. But modern books shouldn't be short. You shouldn't be short-sighted towards the value of modern books as a collector and as a speculator, because that's where the current generation of people who are buying books are fixated on. Mm-hmm. They may be, they know about the Hulk 181s, but they are collecting the books from this generation, the Champions one, or they're getting the Miles Morales, or they're getting the Kamala Khans. Now the new Star Wars books, from the past 10 years. Those are what people are looking for today. We know that if we see our live sales, we're constantly getting people asking for modern books.
And really just kind of put it to your own experience growing up in the 80s or the 70s. Did you ever think Transformers #1 was going to be $1,000 book? Did you ever think G.I. Joe #1 was going to be $1,000 book? Did you ever think Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles #1 was going to be a $36,000 book? No, absolutely not. But people go where their childhood is. And, in 25-year rule, we'll see what happens with Ultimate Fallout #4. Thank you, Nick. Very good discussion.
Right. Absolutely. Thank you so much. And yes, tune in to us in 25 years and we will review this.
Hey, kids, it's me. Moving on to our main topic. Speaking of old folk, we're here to tell you about the top 5 mistakes, in our opinion, that comic book collectors make. So, just getting into the hobby, been in it for a few years, you might learn something here. And let's just get right into it. Number 1, for me, the biggest mistake I see people making all the time is not learning how to properly grade your comic books. This is the most important skill you can have as a collector, not because you want to sell your books, although you probably should know how to grade properly if you're going to do that to save yourself some customer service issues, but learning to be honest with yourself so you know what really is in your collection. And I speak from my experience where I bought books years ago and I'm like, oh yeah, I have a Captain America 100 and it's near mint. And I go back and I look at it years later with all the knowledge I have and I'm like, no, this is a 7.0 if it's anything. You've got to learn how to properly grade your books and be honest with yourself. Be brutally honest with yourself. We've covered this in another episode. The link will be in the description. But number one mistake, in my opinion, is not learning how to properly grade.
Definitely. You don't want to get yourself in a situation where you are overvaluing your books for a variety of reasons. If you're trying to sell it, there are a lot of people who look at the high column on the grading charts that are 9.8s and immediately assume that that's the value of their book.
Yeah.
And it's funny, you could tell when you're dealing with an inexperienced person because they think, that particular book they happen to have, that Nova #1, is a $1,200 book, $1,500 book. And they just know that instinctively because that's what the guides tell them. They don't understand condition factors into that price. So don't be that kind of person. Understand the value of the books. And as John said, be honest with yourself and look at the book in the cold light of dawn as opposed to through ruby red lenses. The next point we're going to talk about is overpaying for a popular book. This is something I still find myself doing. There's always the hot flavor of the week or the month, or in some types like Miles, the year, and you come across a listing on eBay. eBay says the book is $1,500. You look at the other listings for that book on eBay, and they're around $1,600 to $1,300. You come across one that says $1,300. Well, it's $200, $300 cheaper than the highest one on the list. It's got to be a bargain, right? So you go ahead and buy that book, only to find out later by going to GPA, which is one of still the best sources to find out sale prices. The book is actually a $600 book. The people on eBay are just marking them up to catch patsies like you and me, because I have done this multiple times, and you end up overpaying for the book. This dovetails perfectly into the next point that we wanted to talk about.
And that is not doing your research on the different grading companies. There are several grading companies out there, the most prominent being CGC and CBCS. But there are other ones. There's some that are overseas. There are some that are out of people's garages. And we're not going to call them out by name, but really do your research. Some are more respected than others. Some have different positives. The party line is CGC is the biggest. It's the easiest to flip because people have a trust factor with it. They know about it. CBCS is seen as tougher grading. They're very, very tough on grading because their head grader used to work for CGC, helped start the company, I believe. And so you've got this. Now, in my experience, in my personal collection, I have an Avengers 4 8.5 that was graded by CBCS. I kind of got it for less because it wasn't a CGC book. I got it for under GPA. Now, am I upset about that? No. I'm actually glad that I have this book because I know it was graded tight. And I know I can keep it for years. And if I really want to flip it someday, I'll get a crossover graded from CGC. It'll probably come back a 9.0. So I don't feel bad about having that book. But everyone's mileage is different. So take a real good look on Google, read some of the forums, read some of the boards. Some companies have a really, really bad reputation for missing restoration, for overgrading. People get upset when they buy a book from that company and they crack it and they send it in and it comes back, it was a 9.0, but it came back a 4.5. Yeah, don't get mad. Look at the grader's notes. They missed a crayon drawing in the middle of the issue. Real story, by the way, that I saw on a forum. So just really do your research. We're not going to do it for you, but do your research.
Absolutely. Next, this is something that John and I have talked about for a long time, submitting modern books to CGC without pressing them first.
Don't do it.
No, don't do it. The paper that they use in modern books nowadays is wafer thin. And if you get a brand new book right from Diamond and it's wavy cover and it's just a mess. A simple press will clean all that up. And some books, I mean, John and I were talking about Ultimate Fallout 4, as we were talking earlier. That book, because it was polybagged, has a potential crease all the way down the back of the book. So if you don't get that pressed out, that's going to affect the grade as well.
And you're going to be upset. You're going to send books in. They're going to come back. You'll get 9.4s. You'll get 9.6s. Every once in a while, you get a 9.8. But I have found, and you guys have seen from my live unboxing videos where I really share this with you, if I send 18 modern books in that I press myself, I come back with 17 9.8s. And the other book's a 9.6 because somebody got up and didn't have their coffee. So,
yeah. It's really important because that's a return on your investment. You're spending all that money to submit those books. You want to get the best grade that you possibly can.
And if you're not comfortable doing it yourself, find a presser that has good reviews that you're comfortable with, and do it in bulk. Don't just send one book unless you've got an Ultimate Fallout 4 or something like that. Or just really watch our videos. I'll put this one in the description too. Buy a press. They're $200 on Amazon, and teach yourself. If you're going to spend thousands of dollars on comic books eventually, I mean, let's be honest, that's what we end up doing, although we tell ourselves we don't.
And our wives.
Yeah, exactly. Don't tell them. Why don't you spend that $200 on the press and just learn how to do it? The ethics, again, you have your opinions, but the ethical implications are out the window now. It is so commonly accepted that I just don't think it makes any sense to spend $25, $32 fast track to send a book to CGC without maximizing the potential for a 9.8.
Right. And the ethics about that is something that we could debate forever. Personally, it's not changing, it's not altering the book at all. It's simply improving the presentation. And that to me is not something that is an ethical concern.
Putting that aside, whether it alters the book or not, the conversation's over. The market has decided. Yep. It's kind of a useless argument at this point. So press your books if you're going to send them in, people. Come on. And the last one I think is probably the most important one, and that is the mistake people make not buying what you like, chasing books because you have FOMO, fear of missing out. I'm guilty too. Richard's guilty. I'm not a big Peach Momoko fan, but there was one point 6 months ago where I was like, Peach Momoko, I gotta buy it. Whereas Richard's a huge Peach Momoko fan, and of course now he's got lots of Peach stuff because he likes it.
Yeah, I am also wasn't really a big Venom fan, and there was the feeding frenzy of Venom there for quite some time.
What are you talking about? Stop it.
So yeah, definitely, it's in the long run. You're in this for a variety of reasons. Everyone does it for a variety of reasons. There's the collector portion of you. There is the speculator portion of you, and you got to find a good balance. I find that if I speculate on the books that I like the best, which are typically the books I know the most about, which means I could spot a bargain and be able to maximize my spending potential. If for some reason something falls through and I end up having to keep that book, I'm not so broken up about it. I've got turtle books. I love turtles, and the turtles are one of my favorite things. If I sell a book, that's great. If I don't sell it, I still got it in my collection, and I'm not disturbed by the fact that it's not moving. I'm not paying the rent through selling the book.
You might have happy surprises. There was a point in the early 2000s, mid 2000s, where I decided I loved Peanuts, Charles Schulz. I wanted all the Peanuts comics for some random reason. So I started buying up comics with Peanuts, the original Dell series.
Oh, yeah.
Tip Top Comics. I did a little research and found the first appearance of Peanuts in comics, and that became a goal for me. And I bought it, probably a 5.0 for $250. I pressed it. I got it slabbed. Fast forward to about 10 years later, I sold that book on Heritage for over $3,000. So, I've got Quasar books out the yang over here. The first appearance of Quasar and Incredible Hulk 234 is a big, huge book now. So you just never know what will pop. And so I don't feel bad because I bought it because I liked it.
Yeah, same thing with I still remember to this day when I bought my first Ultimate Fallout 4, this a second print. I called John, the LCS that I had a stack of them, and I bought it. I bought the stack, and it's obviously we know what happened with that book. I still have a bunch of them that haven't been graded, but I've got them on the wall, not because I'm bragging or anything, because I really just love the book. I love the character, and it's a part of my collection. And I like to display my collection, and that's why they're back there.
So what are your big mistakes that you've made or you've seen other people make? Let us know in the comments. It'll be interesting to see what you guys contribute, and maybe we'll talk about it next week in a viewer mail segment. But now it is time to part the mists of time and go back to 1996 for the 25-year rule. Whoa. Look, I'm ready for today.
Yes, you are. The first family.
Prepared to talk about the 25-year rule. Welcome back to 1996. As we said in our introduction for the new year last week, 1996 for Marvel was definitely what I call last issue palooza, where they just started canceling stuff left and right. DC as well, many long running books with hundreds and hundreds of issues under their belts. Now, it wasn't because they were poor sellers, but sales had really started lagging at this point. Marvel was distributing their books themselves through Heroes World. This was year 2 of this experiment that was a colossal failure. And so Marvel's top guns, the executives around editorial, ran around them and started getting ready for something called Heroes Reborn, where they would try to recruit Image Comics artists and writers, I guess, to launch some of their biggest properties to see if they could inject some life into these long-standing properties that were just really feeling a slump. One of those was Fantastic Four. So as a result, Fantastic Four, number 416, was the final issue of the original run since 1961, the architects of the Marvel Universe. Why would you cancel Fantastic Four to reboot it at number 1? It must have been dire. So Fantastic Four 416 kind of clears the decks, resolves a lot of plot lines, part of the Onslaught storyline that was crossing over in all these books. And right now it has a GPA 90-day average for a 9.8 of $80. There are only 22 9.8s on the CGC census. And I want to say this is a lower print run because it was a last issue. Now, the print run on this, because it was being distributed by Heroes World, they weren't sharing information, so you can't really find it online through sources like Comic-Con. However, I'm ready. I did a little research, and I went on eBay, and I bought this. This is the Comics Buyer's Guide. For those of you who remember the CBG, which was a weekly newspaper. Remember CBG?
Yeah.
I love CBG. This is the Comic Buyer Guide standard catalog of comic books. And this was a really cool way, pre-GPA, of tracking how much books were going for on auction sites. But one reason why I bought this, really the main reason, is because it lists the print runs of every book in here just about. And if you look at Fantastic Four 416, the print run was 105,000 copies, which is pretty healthy. It's not too bad. So that may explain why it's not really a super scarce book, but it is a final issue. And I know they started the numbering again with issue 500 and picked up that legacy numbering, but this is an important milestone book in Marvel Universe history.
Do you remember the storyline that was going on at the time?
Yeah, it was all about Onslaught, which was this kind of melding of Magneto and Professor X's psyche that went rogue and not destroyed the Marvel Universe, but was going to destroy the Marvel Universe. He ended up fighting Fantastic Four, Avengers, Captain America, and Iron Man, and they all got sent into this little pocket universe, which was the Heroes Reborn universe. And, it lasted just over 13 months, and they all came back with Heroes Return. So, they kind of don't talk about it anymore, but it was a big crossover event to kind of just, again, resolve plot lines, clear the decks, and let the Image guys do their thing, for better or worse. So Fantastic Four 416, just kind of an important book. All right, let's move on to our underrated books of the week. Richard, why don't you go first?
Yeah, my underrated book is Prodigy #1, the Virgin variant. Prodigy is a book that is part of the Millar world, Mark Millar's creation. It's the first appearance of Edison Crane, and Edison is the world's smartest human. He's so smart, he's able to fragment his brain into multiple thought processes, and they talk to each other and they process different things at the same time. It's really cool. It's a good story. The Prodigy series is 6 books long. The really exciting part is Millar World was bought by Netflix in 2017, and there have been talks of a television show focusing on the storyline of Prodigy. Also, in March of 2020, it was reported that they were also going to make a feature film. So there's some real potential behind this book for Netflix. And everyone knows right now theaters are kind of going the way of the dodo. Streaming is really the focus of the major studios now. So Netflix is in a perfect position to rival Disney Plus and the MCU and HBO Max. They can put out high quality storylines, and I think this has a great potential of being one of those stories that Netflix puts out. Again, it's a great story. If you get a chance to buy them, you could still buy the 1 through 6, the A covers, really, really cheap. As a matter of fact, the GPA on this Virgin variant, which is cover H, if you go through it, so there's quite a number of covers. There are only 6 of them on the census right now, and the GPA for the last one sold, which was last month, was $55. So it's not an expensive book. The problem is there's only 6 graded 9.8, so it's gonna be hard to come by even at $55. So if you could come across these books, they're listed up on eBay. You could still pick them up, get them pressed and graded yourself. But I think this is potentially, especially if they do a really good work with the series on the TV show, this could be a really big book. People are focusing on Star Wars right now, and this may be the reason why the prices are kind of suppressed. The Millar World universe can be just as successful as the Star Wars universe.
Oh, that's interesting. I've never heard of this book. I hear Prodigy, and it just reminds me of the very first computer BBS service I subscribed to back in the 90s. I love Prodigy.
I hear Prodigy and I think of the band.
Yeah. My what? And Star Wars, my underrated book of the week is Marvel Super Special number 16. Now, this has kind of popped up a lot in the last week in my personal world. I saw it on a few auctions. I saw it on a couple giveaways on Instagram. I had our good friend Music Film Life DM me some information, some questions about this book, so I thought I would cover this. Star Wars Empire Strikes Back was not adapted in the comic book first. Marvel Super Special number 16 is the true first appearance of Boba Fett. Do not be fooled. While Star Wars number 42 is a hot book due to the first cover appearance of Boba Fett, it came out months after Marvel Super Special number 16. And in fact, I went digging deep into my old comic readers, and I have a couple scans for you that I'm going to put on the screen now. Marvel Super Special number 16 came out in May 1980. There were 3 formats. It came out in this magazine format, a paperback, a tiny little paperback, and a treasury edition. Now, those 3 formats, I believe, don't quote me on this one, that the magazine came first. In fact, I kind of am 99% sure the magazine came out first, and I'll tell you why in a second. Then the paperback, then the treasury edition. Star Wars 42 didn't come out until September 1980. So you've got a 6-month there. So while Marvel's Special Edition, which is the Treasury Edition, also contained this material, it's also dated spring 1980. So it's very vague. It's unclear whether it came out as at the same time as the magazine version, Marvel Super Special 16. But I do know Marvel Super Special 16 was first, in my mind, almost certainly, because when it came out before the movie. It was not supposed to. And it had obviously huge spoilers. And it was in the fan press at that time that Lucasfilm was furious. Marvel's salespeople tried to recall all the editions that went direct sales. They couldn't recall the newsstand versions because that ship had sailed. They were in warehouses, they were on stands. But if you look at old articles in the Comics Journal around May 1980, you'll see these huge articles about how Marvel really effed up and Lucasfilm almost withdrew the license because of this. I mean, they spoiled a major movie by having this first. So, I'm not trying to say the market should shift to Marvel Super Special 16. I'm just putting out facts because I do know magazines traditionally have a tougher time getting hold of collectors because of the storage issues. They're huge. You got to buy a separate box for them, especially magazine slabs, so things like this. Marvel Preview, the first appearance of Rocket Raccoon, that doesn't get as much notice as his first appearance in comic book form in The Incredible Hulk. First appearance of Star-Lord was in Marvel Preview number 4. People don't really care about that. They want his first appearance in comic book form in Marvel Spotlight number 6. So there are, precedents for this kind of, shunting the magazine first appearance to the side. But facts is facts, as they say. Boba Fett first appeared in Marvel Super Special number 16.
Wow, that's serious knowledge you got there, John. I didn't realize that Marvel screwed up that bad in the 80s. I was alive then. I don't remember any of that.
They did. And boy, I'm going to try to dig and see if I can find a couple scans from that article and post it on our Instagram, which, by the way, is Bronze and Modern Gods. If you're not following us there, please do. If you have not subscribed or liked this video, why not? Did you learn something? Click like, subscribe if you haven't. We love you for it. But that is it for this week. Richard, thank you so much. And everybody, thank you so much. And please join us next time.
Stay safe, everyone.